G'day everyone, this is Jill, also known as GeniAus in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia. And I'm ready and raring to go with another GeniAus Hangout on air. Tonight we're having something a little bit different. We're basically having an interview and a demonstration of my family database software, my genealogy database software, which is FamilyHistorian. I'm thrilled to have Jane Taubman from the UK, from Somerset, who's a family historian guru, online to answer some questions. If you'd like to pose any, please do so in the thread underneath the event in Google+, and I shall monitor them. Now, I've known of Jane since I moved over to Family Historian because of her activity on the Family Historian user group, and I had the pleasure of meeting Jane on a cruise last year, Unlock the Past Genealogy cruise, and I went to all 6, I think it was, of her presentations. I couldn't retain everything Jane taught us because she taught us so much. So I signed up for 2 days worth of training with Jane in Somerset in November. Well, once again, Jane shared so much. She's a wonderful teacher. She's aware of what the students in the room are up to. She takes into account their individual needs. Now that's going to be a bit difficult online here tonight, but I know she's going to tell us lots about Family Historian and probably clarify why people like me moved over to Family Historian. Now, we've only got a couple of people in our film strip today. Just want to warn you, Colin, that the focus will be on Jane, so there won't be as much interaction as what we normally have in a GeniAus Hangout on air. Now, I've mentioned if you've got any questions for Jane, please post them in the forum underneath the event in Google+. That's what I'm watching. Hello, Jenny Joyce, you're going to watch. That's great. Now I'm going to ask Jane to say hello and maybe answer, good day, as we say, maybe answer, tell us a little bit about herself, and then I'll get her to answer a few questions about Family Historian before she shares her screen and we launch into a demonstration. Hello, Jane.
Hi Jill, well thanks very much for inviting me along. It's bright and early in the morning here. It's sort of 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, whereas it's late in the evening with yourselves. So I'll say good day rather than good morning or good afternoon. I've been using Family Historian since 2002 when it came out. I actually moved from Family Tree Maker at that point. I really like the program. I've run the user group for about the same amount of time. I think the user group started about 6 months after the program was launched. And it started off just as a way of members sharing information, and we've now got about just over 5,000 members. It's a free service, so anybody can come along and join the forums, and there's a useful knowledge base there and a few videos, things like that, which most people find quite useful. And I think it's possibly one of the strengths in that we've got such a good group of users who really support the product.
It's fantastic. Now, I forgot my manners, Jane. I didn't say hello to Colin, who's coming to us from. Colin, where are you coming to us from?
Hi, I'm in Spain, and I'm an expat from the UK who moved over here some 11 years ago, and I've been a Family Historian user for about 3 or 4 years now, moving over from PAF.
Thank you, Colin. Sorry, Jane, for the interruption, but we must mind our manners. Now, we're going to start off with a few questions first. There are a whole range of people who want a genealogy program. Can a beginner use Family Historian?
Yes, certainly they can. Where Family Historian's strengths are is it's got the power to move from quite simple usage to quite complex usage and anywhere in between. So yes, any beginner can pick up and use the program. I mean, I'd always say that if you're beginning in family history, the thing to do is get a good grasp of what family history is and how to record it, because the one thing everybody says that's been doing genealogy for a while is I recorded everything right in the first place.
Absolutely. So
and anybody that's been hanging around lately would have seen the genealogy do-over, which is Tom McKinsey's promoting. And that's the main cause. So I'd always say is when you're getting started, it's a great idea to just have a look around and see what other people suggest and what sort of things everybody's complaining that they didn't do it the first time. So yeah, Family Historian is brilliant for beginners, but I'd always say for any beginner is learn the fundamentals. You know, you wouldn't go and buy £10,000 worth of golf clubs and then learn to play golf.
No. Yeah, we've all made that mistake. So is the program suitable for advanced users?
Most certainly. It's got a real power for growing to meet people's needs. You can do almost anything.
Yeah, I might just ask Colin, seeing as you've been a migrant from PAF, what do you think of the strengths as far as, you're an advanced user, you're an IT guy.
Yes, I am, Jill. I find it, the two things that leap out at me are the query language that's built in so that you can construct your own queries and query your data, and also all the plugins that are available that enhance the functionality in different directions.
Okay, that's lovely. Thanks, Colin. I've got a run sheet here that I'm going to keep Jane on track, so I'm not going to let you.
You asked the question.
I know. That's my manners. Okay. So, Jane, what do you see as being the 5 strengths of Family Historian? 4 or 5?
I wrote these down because you sort of suggested I should have a list. But I think one of the big ones is I'd say it treads a fine line between ease of use and flexibility. Because you can it always tries to make the screens look very simple, and sometimes when advanced users see the program for the first time, they think it hasn't got much functionality. Because what it aims to do is look simple from the beginning, and then you can pick up all sorts of things that you may not see. So one of the big advantages is it's not too terrifying for the beginner. But if you start lifting up the lids on things, it's a bit like one of those Chinese boxes where you lift lids, and underneath there's lots and lots more boxes. The other thing I've got written down here is stability. Family Historian is one of the most stable pieces of software, certainly that I've ever used. I mean, most Windows software does something unpredictable occasionally. But Family Historian does it a lot less, and it's pretty solid on keeping its data safe. Almost the majority of the times, if you do get a problem with it, it's because there's another badly behaved program on the computer causing it to misbehave.
Okay.
The next one I've got on my list is media handling or photograph handling, and I'm hoping I'm going to be able to show you that a little bit later on in the presentation.
Yeah, we hope we get there.
The next one is extensibility, which Colin's already mentioned. The ability to write plugins and queries and fact-set schemes and type schemes. There are lots and lots of things that the other advantage that we've got with those, as well as being extensible, all the extensibility options are shareable. So one of the things that the user group site does is to share that information with lots of different users. So there might only be a few dozen people that write plugins, but because they're shared with everybody else, that means everybody gets the benefit of those plugins.
Oh, that's great. Dummies like me love them. Okay.
And the final thing I've got on my list is GenCom.
Yes.
One of the main reasons I originally moved to Family Historian is that it stores pretty well all of its data in text files, because that's what a GenCom file is. Now, with my techie hat on, what that means is that I've got the ability to look at that data and sort out that data. And one of the things we've been able to do when moving data from other programs whose GenCom isn't quite as good, you can always get in there and sort out the text. You don't really lose anything as long as it's the program it's coming from exports everything. Then you can sort out the fact that it didn't do it properly because it's a text file. And of course, GenCom is still the sort of generic standard for moving data between programs.
Okay, so some of that's a little bit complicated for me. Jane, I'm going to ask you to share your screen. I'll just put my talking head on for a minute while you do that. because I thought we should have some sort of organisation tonight, and the first thing I thought I'd ask you is about a record. What sort of things can be included in a record? And I'm wondering if you can show us a rich record to quickly demonstrate that. And you're ready to go by the looks.
Yep, yeah, I'm already here. What I've done, this is actually my grandfather's record, so I thought we'd start here. So this is the Family Historian Focus window, and for beginner users, this is probably where they spend most of their time to start with. So what we've got here is Albert Jack, and this section over here, where it says individual Albert Jack, is the property box. This is where you enter your information and review your information. So what we can see here is each one of these individual lines is a fact about Albert Jack. So we can see here that he's born on the 25th of February. Down here we can put in a date, and we can put in an age. Obviously for birth that's not very relevant, but for census and things it is. We can split down an address, we can write a note. One of the things I said about is that Family Historian hides its light under a bushel. So you see this little three dotted thing on the end here. This is going to open up the date helper. Now this means that if you're putting in a date and you're not quite sure how to format it correctly, you can come in here and you can put in an individual date, you can put in a period date, you can put in a date phrase. These are quite useful sometimes if you know it was sort of before the war, and you'd rather in the reports it said before the war than sort of said pre-1939. You can put a date phrase in and then put a year in to equate to it. You can then put a range. And for quarter indexes, obviously if you've got UK ancestors and you haven't got infinite funds, then you can put in first quarter, second quarter for people that you only know the General Record Office index record. We then down here got a source, which obviously is important, and then we've got some buttons down here to show the media. So if I want a quick look at Albert Jack's...
Now the media, okay.
Yeah, so I can jump on that little button there and I can get the birth certificate on the screen if I just want to review it.
Okay.
So that's very easy to do. You can also see this is Family Historian 6.
Yeah.
So I've then got census information, I've got a occupation. I've then got extra information here which is new to 6. You may be able to see it's got a grey background on it. This is information from other people's records that it's including in the timeline, so you can see perhaps when the parents died or the family got married, there were marriages.
I was showing someone the other day, someone who uses TMG. They said, oh, it hasn't got a timeline. I said, oh yes it has, and they were most impressed.
Yeah, and with the timeline, again, Family Historian hides things. So under this menu down here, you can go into timeline facts and you can tell it exactly what you want it to include. So do you want to include all the parents and the siblings events, or do you want to just include the children and the grandchildren? So that can be quite useful. You can also see I've got a newspaper article here. So what you can see here, I've attached what happened, when it happened, and what was happening, and then he was up to something. We won't mention what he was up to, and again I've got the image attached, so you can see that information down there. And what you'll see if you look under here, you can see I've got more information. So although it says Western Gazette, it's actually Western Gazette from October of that date, and it's got the image of the article attached. And then we got him getting off whatever it was he was up to.
Oh.
Okay, and then there's his marriage, and again, marriage certificate. You can very quickly go have a look at the marriage certificate. We can zoom into the marriage certificate, have a really good look at it. And obviously any of these documents can be added. We've then got a whole load of residence documents. You'll notice that they moved around a bit.
Oh yeah. That's good. I just must butt in and say sorry to the people who are watching. That the screen isn't so clear, but that's something we can't control. But I think you'll get the general gist of things.
Okay, so what I've got here is a list of residences my grandfather actually actually moved around quite a bit when my father was small, hence the fact he went to 13 different schools. So what you can see here is, this is one of the other things which is new, and I know Jill was very keen on, which is that we've now added, family historians have now got witnesses. And you can tell that these records have got witnesses, and this is actually a witness record. You can see these little blue icons down the side. And what I can do is I can come down here, go into witnesses, and then you can see who is resident with whom at that point. And you then get the sentence that you'll get in his report. So it would actually say he lived in Walcombe, Dorset with Mary Margaret and Alan Herbert Harry.
Okay. Now, okay, so we've looked at a record here, and we've got information, basic information that most programs allow us to put in. We're allowed to attach witnesses to an event, but yet also we can attach media, newspaper clippings, letters, copies of certificates, vital records, and photographs.
Yeah, and there's actually nothing to stop you, should you want to. Obviously, they wouldn't work in reports and things. There's nothing to stop you attaching little video clips or anything, or audio clips. If you've got any of those cassette tapes lying around that you really should have done something with, now is the time to do it before the cassette recorder disappears off the planet.
Okay. Oh, there's some questions coming in here on the forum. Some of them I'm going to hold, Carmel and Chris, and put them in at an appropriate time. I'm just going to ask Jane to step back a bit. I've structured our talk, our demonstration, into data in, data out, and then other bits and pieces. So let's start at the very beginning, Jane. Assuming someone's put the software on their computer, I suppose we could have my talking head for a minute. After installing the program, how does one get started with entering data?
Okay, well, when you start the program for the very first time, the screen that you'll see then is this project window.
I hope everyone can see it. Yep, okay. No one's complaining.
So the project window is really just a list of projects. So you can have one project or you can have many projects. So what you'll see here is I've got a variety of different projects here, and I've got my sample set one that I'm using today, just so I don't accidentally update my master data. If you're starting completely from scratch, so you don't have anything recorded at all you do is you go to New Project, Start a New Project, and then you just put in some start information.
Okay, so for instance, I've got a project for my one name study, and I've got another project for my family, and then I've got another project for when you were teaching us, because I didn't want to muck up my data. So you can have multiple projects in the program.
As many projects as you want. One thing I would always say is a lot of people are very concerned about having too big a file, and they'll split, do an arbitrary split, perhaps at their parents or their grandparents. With Family Historian, I would say, well, consider whether you actually need to do that. The big danger with that is that you end up having duplicated people in the lower generations. And it's sometimes much easier to keep them all together, because there are ways within Family Historians to send other people data. Some people do it because they think it's going to be easier, but I'd say start off with one file until there's such a good reason for having a second database. If you're only researching one family, if you're doing a research for your friend's cousin or something, then by all means set a separate project up for that.
Okay, all right. So we've got our project.
Okay, and I've added in a couple of names, and I can go next. And what are we going to call this? So we'll call this test 1, because then I know I can delete it when I've finished. And if I do a finish there, this default one, I turn it, if you leave that ticked, what will happen if you're creating your very first project, when you load the program next time, it will load that one up automatically. I've just unticked it because I don't want this to become my default project. So if I do finish on that, I've now got a wildly exciting tree with a couple of people in it. So that is all there is to do to get started with just creating a blank tree. So we've now got 3 people in my tree.
Okay. So how do we add a son or something?
Okay, there's a couple of different ways of doing that. So if we go back up to my father, just go up to the, and what I've got 5 different ways of doing this, and it's true with all of them. But the one I particularly like, and I very often use this function if I'm talking with somebody and I'm just trying to get a picture of their family, they can find it quite difficult to follow what I'm doing. So what I tend to do is to go up and use one of Family Historian's diagrams.
Oh, okay.
So what I would do here is, here's my diagram. I can now take that diagram and I can add, so let's say, well, we'll add in add in my sister.
I just want to shout out to Hilary Gadsby. Thank you, Hilary, for answering so many of the questions on the thread. You're saving me a job there and saving Jane. Hilary's one of the users from Wales.
Yeah, so what I can do here, you can see I've added that in. And if I wanted to add in a father, I can drag up. So all I'm actually doing is holding down the mouse button.
So that little box on the right-hand side just opens up as you add it. It just sort of opens for each new person, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and if I leave it open, it'll move around. So if I add a spouse here, so I'll add in.
It's empty.
Well, I can go through, and obviously if I was talking to somebody, what we're doing in a little while, we'll have a look at automatic source citation. But what I could do is, if they've given me extra information, if I wanted to put in, if she said, oh, she was born in 1906, and she died in 2004, you can go through and just key in that information. I can come back here, if I click on Albert Jack, I can drag down, I can add another member of the family.
Okay.
But you can sit and just draw a tree with somebody quite easily.
Yeah, side by side, yeah.
Yeah, so you can sort of work through it and build. What I do sometimes if I'm talking to somebody is won't start with my tree, I'll start with this and get them to tell me all what they know. Then I can go and compare it with what I found from official records.
Okay. So I'm aware of time. How else can we put data in?
You can put data in on here. Now what you'll see, now I've come back here, you'll see that you've already got the data here.
Added in, yeah.
So I can add another record in here if I wanted, so I could add in Graham. And now what I might find, and you very often do find with these things, is that what we've actually done is Graham is actually the oldest child, and they'll go, that's the oldest one, so you can just use these little arrows to rearrange them. Family Historian will sort it for itself if you've got births in there.
Now, I notice we can't see the tabs across there. I happen to know that the first tab, the tab you're working in, is spouses and children. What's the next one?
The next one is parents and siblings. So if I click to that one.
Different views, yeah.
Yeah, so they're just different views.
Yeah.
So you can see here we've got Alan selected at the top. Yeah. And we've now got his parents. So obviously at that point you'd see his grandparents. If I have a look at the ancestors on this one, then there's lots of empty space. And you'll see here we can still add information on this one. So if you prefer to add it in on this view, you can.
Yeah.
And you can also put in, you don't put information in on this one other than in the property box, but you could come in here and you could say, right, I'm going to add.
So now what's the property box? Can you explain that again to people? The property box, what is that?
The property box is where this area here, you can either have it as it's here docked on, so it's sort of joined on to the other one, or you can make it float. So what I can do is I can say float it, and it will then sit on top.
Yeah, that's how I move it round and round. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can either put it in either position, and you can control which way it works on each screen. So there's no problem with that.
Okay.
Okay. Just one thing quickly while I'm in this screen. If you've got double-barreled surnames.
Oh yeah.
Because what will happen if I take that out and I put in Mary Jane, so I say Mary Jones Smith, if I do that, Family Historian will always assume that the last word is a surname. If you've got a double-barreled surname, all you do is to move that / around the surname, and she's now Mary Jones Smith. You can see that over here because it's capitalised the double-barreled surname. Just a useful little tip.
Yeah, I've just opened something funny on my other computer. Never mind. Now, good genealogists always add sources as they go.
Yep.
How are you going to add a source to something?
Okay, right. Well, there's a couple of different ways. I can either go in and add a citation down here, which I'll do first just to give you an idea. So I can come here, I can add a new source. So I might say this is a verbal a source can be a document. I mean, this could attach. I could quite easily. I've probably spelled conversation wrong, have I?
Yeah. Sorry, I have to tell you, Sean has just added herself and her parents, and already she's got matches from the MyHeritage. We'll talk about that later. She's working with you.
Yeah, no problem.
Sorry.
Okay, so I've added in a source record here. I can then go in. I could add a repository to that. There are a couple of ways of different doing sources, which and there's periodically a very good discussion about whether we have a source for every document or we have a sort of generic source. So, for instance, do I have birth certificate Albert Jack Mullins, or do I have birth certificates and then attach the citation? My preferred option is that in my sources, and I'll load my database back in a second and show you, I have a source for each birth certificate, because that way I can add the media to it.
Carmel, I'm taking note of your questions, and answers should be forthcoming.
Okay, so I've added in my verbal conversation with Joyce Mullins.
Are you there, Jane?
As my source. So what I can do now is I can use this blue arrow to jump over.
Chris Wright wants to know, do you have to use GEDCOM to import to Family Historian? No, there are some plugins that will help you, Chris, import from other programs. There's one for TMG, for instance, and there's been a new update to, there were some issues with it, and Family Historian issued an update, or a version 6.1 or something, just in the last day or two, that addresses those issues. Jane, I can't hear you.
That's all right. Well, you were talking, so I was being quiet. Can you hear me now?
We can't hear Jane. I'm wondering if anyone else out there can hear her.
I can still hear her.
Okay, I'm going to keep going because I think this might be Jill for some reason. I'm just going to answer Jill's question about family tree imports.
Jane appears to have disappeared, so until she butts in again,
I'm still here, Jill.
I'll go through some of your questions. I think, Carmel, you want to know about, can you transcribe documents within the program? Does it have does it have like a split window thing? No, it doesn't. You've just got to transcribe yourself. Pauline, I'm not sure what you mean about you're missing the paths we are using. Are you following along in Family Historian?
Can you hear me again, Jill?
It's Carmel. Sean is impressed.
Jill, can you hear me?
Carmel is extra. Colin Spencer. Okay, thanks, Colin.
Can you hear me again yet, Jill?
I think it's a problem with Jill, Jane. I can hear you fine. I think she's got the problem again.
Okay, I'll keep going. I think that's probably best. What I'll do is I'm just going to answer the question about importing. You can import from some versions of Root Magic and some versions of Family Tree Maker directly. The best thing to do is to have a look on the Family Historian User Group website, which has got in the knowledge base there's a list of which programs can be used with which programs you can import from and some recommended methods of doing so. So it's worth just going and having a look on there just to see what's available, because there are some great options in there. So I'm just going to go to the knowledge base a minute and have a look at that. So if you come into the knowledge base and into the bottom of installation guides and importing, you'll see there's a list. There's Ancestry website or Family Tree Maker, Jedbox, and a few others. And we've just written some hints and tips here so you can see how to bring data in. And there's also some hints and tips on fixing data where they've come from programs that aren't so good. Okay, so the other one I wanted to cover is that you can bring in from another GEDCOM if you want. So you can do exactly the same thing. You can say new project, import from a GEDCOM, and then just pick up your GEDCOM file. When you do that, the main problem that you may have is FamilyHistorian will probably come up with an exception report. The thing to do with the reception report is not to be frightened by it. If you're coming from something like PAF, you'll get lots and lots of data that FamilyHistorian doesn't know what to do with, which is PAF sort of reference numbers. Don't worry about those. You can just handle those by ignoring them completely or then removing them, and that's one of the things that's covered in the import guide, so don't find that that's a big problem.
I'm just butting in.
Yeah, can you hear me yet, Jill?
Can you hear me now, Jane?
I can hear you. I can still hear Jill, but she obviously can't hear me. I can see her as well. I'll wave at her. Let me just stop sharing a minute and then just see if that helps.
Jane, I think my microphone's just carked it. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, I think my microphone's just carked it. I can't, it's not working. So, sorry about that. You'll have to, I'll mute myself so there's no feedback. So, how are you going with our run sheet? I noticed you had the user group up there. Have you talked about automatic source citation?
No, what I was just going to do, I was just talking about answering the question you were saying about importing data and which programs and how to do it. So the reason I went to
lovely.
is there's some various documents there for all different versions of FamilyHistorian, so I thought the best thing to do was to just cover those. So what I'm going to do now is go back in and do automatic source citation.
Yeah, lovely, thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to share again now. Okay, so just going to go back to the focus window, and what you'll find, if I just explain what automatic source citation is, if you're working from a single source, it can be really helpful to use automatic source citation. So for instance here, just bear with me a minute, I'm just going to grab another copy of Chrome. Okay, so let's take a reasonable example. So if we just go to Find My Past, because I have a license for this. Okay, now this is really any arbitrary program we can come in, and I can then bring in information in as an automatic source. So what I can do here, I could either start typing. So if I was going to enter some information from a source I've already put in, I can start searching, I can do a drop down. There's a whole raft of ways of getting the right information. This is my sample, so there's not much in this new data. Right, so I'm just going to log in and Find My Past. Won't be a second.
Yeah, I think if you're a quick typist like me, it's really, really useful.
Yeah. I'm just doing a quick Find My Past search. Oh, they keep telling me that they've got news things. I'm not interested in that at the moment. Go away. Right. Okay, so I'm just going to take one of these at random. So what I can do here is, if I've got a transcriptions, okay, so we've got a Commonwealth War Graves transcription here. So I'm just going to put that on the other screen because it's easier for me to drag and drop from the other one. So what I might do here is I might say, right, I'm going to set up a new source. What I've done there is just dragged in that information off the other screen. I can put in as much information here as I want to put in, so I might put Albert Mullins and I put 1916. And what I would normally do is go through and put in the rest of the information, but you don't all want to sit there and watch me type for half an hour.
So what I might do now is...
Yeah, I think we get the drift, yeah. Good.
Yeah, so I go through and put in where within source, text within source, whatever notes I wanted to put in, and I might say, right, I'm going to create that source. So I'm going to say, yes, I want to create a source record. I've got my source record over here. This particular one hasn't got an image, so what I'd probably do then is just go and drag and drop the information over from my web page, so I can drag that and put that in. So that's just dragged in all the data off my... I've got the Find My Path screen on the other screen, so I can drag that data in, and now I can sit and tidy that up, do whatever I want to do, but at least that information's all there now. And the other thing I do as well is just go and drag the URL in as well, just so I've got that to hand. Okay, so I've now got this, and I can turn on automatic source citation. Once that's done, until I turn that off, every new bit of information I put in from there will be recorded. So what I can do, I go up to I'll put Jack, and I go in and add in a fact. So what I might do, I'll add in military. I've got those in. Put it in as occupation for now. Okay, so I can add an occupation, and I can say, well, in 1916.
So it comes with a lot of facts already in there, doesn't it? But you can add more facts.
Yeah, yeah, you can
facts.
Add as many facts as you want. So you can set up new ones, you can set up sentences for them. So if I just put in that, you get the idea anyway. And what you'll see here, I've put that he was a private in the Middlesex Regiment in 1916. And because automatic source citations turned on, it's automatically add that fact in. So if I then went in and then added a death, so we'll do the same again, we'll do 1916. I'm just doing, obviously when you're doing this properly, you're going to be putting all the information in, and you're going to say, well, he was...
Oh, yeah. So we realise time is of the essence, and I'm moving you along.
We've got a lot. I'm not doing this as a great example of exactly how you do this.
No, but it's just to give, just to give the idea of how you do that. Now, I know when I moved from TMG to Family Historian, there were a couple of things I really missed. Now, you've touched on the witnesses. I don't know if you need to tell people the sort of things they can use the witness function with. I've sort of got it for weddings, burials. I've gone back through all my vital records, and I've got it for the burials and the informants on all the vital records. So what other ways could you use that witness feature? Because I just love it.
I mean, I've used it a good few ways. I mean, I've used it quite a lot with marriages. So we have a look at my marriage one a minute. This is my list of possible facts that I can add in to Family Historian, and this isn't a finite list. These are just the ones I use on a regular basis. So for instance, down here I've got one for twins, and I think I have now put, yes, I have. Okay, so what I can have here is if I've got twins, I can put in a fact for the person's got a twin, and then put the twin in. So on one side of my twins, I can put in that they've got a twin, and then on both their reports, it will tell me that they've got a twin brother or a twin sister on there. So you can just simply show the relations. So here we've got a twin, and then we've got a roll, which is the other twin, and so that you can go between the two, and you can actually do quite complicated things with these sentences. So you can say that the individual that we've got as a witness is actually the twin of the principal. So what that effectively does is you only need to add a twin fact in against one twin, and it will automatically report on both twins that they're twins. So that's a sort of esoteric one. Obviously within marriages you've got a lot of things you can add. So if I have a look here, we've got a very long, very complicated looking sentence, because what it will do is we've actually got 4 different roles, and this sentence is actually putting all those roles and including them all to give you your report. So you've got a lot of flexibility with witnesses to really make your reports rich. And it's worth remembering that all the people in your tree don't actually have to be related to you, But if you don't want to set them up as individuals, you can actually include a witness just as a name. You don't actually have to attach it to a record. So if you just got somebody that was mentioned in a police report or something, you can actually add them as a witness, so you can search on them and do things with them, even if they're not a record in the file.
That's fantastic. Yeah, and I find it interesting to see in the country years ago in the 19th century, which ministers or priests sort of did whatever to whomever. So I can, one priest might have done a christening here and a marriage there and a burial there, and it's not nice to be able to search on them and see what they did. Now, I'm wondering. Well, tell me what you're going to do now. Otherwise, I'm going to move you wrong.
Well, I was going to go and have a little look at images, because I think it's
beautiful. Jenny Fairs has posed a question. So if you just go over how you add a source and link, how you add a source and link the source to a photo.
Okay, there are two ways. That's a good question, and there's two answers to that question, just depending on exactly what she means. You can add to any source. You can add an image. So if I just go to the records window, just grab baptism certificate. I suspect. Just find one with some pictures on. There we go. Okay, so we have a look. This is going from the source to the picture. So for instance, I've got a baptism here, and attached to that I've got an image. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. With version 6, I could, if I've got the image, just drag and drop it onto this window and it will add it in automatically. Or I can go down to Add Media and I can say Insert from File and bring in a new one. So I could go, and not meaningful to add this in here, but you get the idea. So I can just add an image in. It'll ask me where do you want to put it, so what folder do you want it in, and I can just add it in, and then it'll let me put the information in. If what she's meaning is to attach sources to the media, which is sort of another layer down, personally what I tend to do is, if I want to record where a photograph comes from, is I will just put it within the picture note. So I will put received from a person. But you can, if you want, on the records window, go in on the media here and add a note. You have to add a record note, and then you can.
Okay, so.
And then.
So for people who haven't used the program, how do you just add a simple image?
Okay, let me show you that one. The one I normally use is this one. So this is the media window, the main media window. So what I can do here is, if I just grab an image, so I can drag and drop an image in here, or I can just simply let me just grab one. Give me a minute.
While you're grabbing, I must tell people that there is a facial recognition function, but if we're going to get through all the basic stuff, Jane might not be able to show us that, but it's quite brilliant.
It won't be long, Jill, don't worry. Okay,
right,
let's grab
while
a
you're
picture,
doing this,
I'm going to drop this picture in, and there we go. So I've now got a little picture with 3 people in it. Now, one of the nice things with this version is FamilyHistorian 6 now got this links tab, and it's also got this media link tool. This doesn't appear by default, and it's controlled by this little icon up here, so you can turn it on and off up here. So I'd recommend you turn it on. So what I can do here is I can go and look for Taubman Megan. When I click on Taubman Megan, you'll see that, surprisingly enough, she's got 2 brothers and sisters. And what I can do here is I can add these people in. So I can say this is Megan, and just draw around it. I can then come down and I can say this is Byron. And this is Safa.
Carmel's just trying to clarify that the images are stored within the database.
They're actually stored, unless you tell it not to, they're stored in a folder within the project. So they're not stored in the old term way of things. You would store the images physically within the GEDCON file. That's not what Family Historian does. It stores them within the project, which is actually a folder of information. The best thing to do is not worry about it because it's a bit technical, but as long as you make sure when you're backing up, you back up the whole of your project folder, you won't go far wrong.
Right, thanks.
Okay, so what we've got here, I've added those 3 faces in there, and I'm just going to whiz in and just show you a media report for that record. Okay, so there's my report that I've just pulled out, and what it'll do then is it's put the little pictures down the side with the details of them on that side. So you've got a lot of flexibility there, and obviously one thing I find very useful with old photographs is to just get the people to tell you who they are, is to scan them in and view them large. It very often helps. But so you've got your pictures and you can drill down. The other thing you can do on the media record, if you put a date in for the photograph, then you can actually add in, it'll actually calculate the ages of the people if it knows their birth dates.
Uh-huh.
So if you draw around somebody and they come in at 147, they're probably not who you thought they were.
That's good. Now, I don't know if when I was playing with my microphone that wasn't working, have you covered named lists yet? No?
No, I'm going to do that. I can do that now.
Yeah, it's just while you go there, I must say it's one of my favourite things. I used to keep all these Excel spreadsheets, and I've discovered since I've had Family Historian that I don't have a need for so many Excel spreadsheets because I can do a lot of those things that I had in Excel within Family Historian. For instance, I've got lists of, what I need to get at the National Archives, what I need to get at the National Library, what I need to look up in the Sydney Morning Herald. So I think this is a really great feature.
Yeah, let me just show you how it works. So I can go up here, we'll create a new named list. So we'll call this to-do list. What I can do then is I can just pick a few. So where I would normally use this is if I'm going through and I think, oh, Charles Arthur, I need to go and do something with him. I can just very quickly add him into my list, and I can say, look up birth, and I might come down and say I want Henry Joseph as well. I'll add him in, and I need to get GRO death. So it's really just a list that you can use for whatever you want. So I can add in as many people here, and the other way I can add people in is to use queries, which I think we're going to have a look at in a minute. But really, this list can be as flexible as what you want, and you can have as many lists as you want. So I have a key individuals list, which is in my master database of people that I often want to start from. So this is my grandfather and my husband's great-grandfather, for instance. So I can use them as a jumping off point sometimes. So I can just go to that person, and then I can say, right, I want to view him in the focus window. I can jump straight to that particular record. I can go back here, go to my to-do list, pick Henry Joseph, again, jump to focus window for that person. So they're really useful. You've got in the reports, you've got miscellaneous reports, you've got a list report, and I can say, right, I want to print out a list of Jill's to-do list. So there's my list. And I can save that as a PDF. I can export it to Word, so if I want to put more notes on it, I can do so. So there's a lot of flexibility as to what you use them for and how you use them.
Now that's nifty. Now can I ask you one other thing that I may have missed, but I think it's the, what view is it? The spreadsheet view, I call it. It's got a proper name. The query window?
Yeah, results set window.
No, it's the view under the project window that's always there. It's like a spreadsheet and you can add columns to it. I think that's one of the most powerful things.
Yeah, sorry, the record window.
Record, yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
whistle stop tour of the records window. This is version 6, so these things up here filter now. So if I type in Taubman and type in William, it will subset the list down to just the Williams. When you come to do this, you can put date ranges in as well. So if you've got 250 William Taubmans, then good luck in finding them. And also, you'll be able to filter them down, so you can say, I want the one in 1750 that was alive in 1750. You've also got.
So Jane, we access that from the side menu, don't we? From an icon on the side menu.
Yeah, that's correct. It's this one that looks like a barrel. And you can also get there by doing view records lists and then picking the list that you want to look at. So what we've got here, I've filtered that down. In the options, there's one option I'd recommend that you turn on that's turned off by default, is include husband's surnames. So you know when you can remember. But,
oh, that's so wonderful. It's helped me so many times this week.
okay, so what I can do here is I can say search for Mary Mullins. And what you'll see, although I've got some Mary Mullinses, I've also got a Mary Margaret Bowditch and a Mary Goff, because they're married to Mullinses, as you can see from the spouse column over here. So that's a very, very useful feature. It gives you a real power to just quickly find people within the married women. The prior to version 6, you had to do that by using a query, so it was perfectly possible, it just took a little bit longer.
And how about adding the extra column headings? I love adding extra column headings and then sorting. It's you know, the way I get data out. Yeah.
Yeah. What you can do, there's a few things that's worth knowing. If you click on any column, it will sort by that column. So if I search on, so I very often have it sorted by record ID, but I can click on a column to sort by that column, which means I can sort by birthplace, and I can sort by the spouse name, or I can sort by the relationship. I can also search by updated date. So if you think you might have done something a bit wrong, you can very quickly sort by updated date. You've also got the ability to add columns, as Joe alluded to. So I can go in here, I can configure a column, and I can add in any column from any of this list that's already here, or I can use the other column and add anything I want. So for instance, if I wanted to add a flag to my columns, I can just find it on the list, add it, and then perhaps move it up a little bit. Anytime you see these little curved arrows, you can rearrange the columns using the curved arrows. Okay, so I've now added a twin column, and I can very quickly sort to find all the twins in my file and see the information, and from there I can actually open up that information. So sometimes it's quite useful if you want to compare two records, you can just do it here. The next thing you can do from here, which is very useful, is there's now a better find option in version 6. So what I can do here, I can come in, I can say, right, find me all the records that have got Evershot. There are other ways to find them in places, but it's just a good example. Okay, so there are all the people that have got Evershot mentioned in their records somewhere.
Yeah, I love that little find tool. Sometimes I just can't remember something and just use one word and whoopee-doo. So you're getting on already to data out, and we're running short of time. Jane, I wonder if we can just go for probably 10 more minutes extra.
Yeah, no problem. Let me just show you what you can do with the results window, because what I can do here is found 488 records, and although I can actually have a look at them in here, what I do want to do is just show you what happens if I move them into the... This is a results window, and this can come from the find tool, it can come from a plugin, or it can come from a query. And one of the things you can do with it, which if you are a bit of a spreadsheet fan, there is an option here, and I can save the results set as a comma separated file, which means effectively that you can save it as a file that you can open in Excel or another spreadsheet. So if you wanted to do more work on them, you could always save them as that. You can send it to a PDF file, so if you want to stick it on your iPad or your tablet, you can do that as well. And you can also come in here and you can sort out the columns. So you can say, well, that's the item I found. I want to sort them by type. And what I can also do is come back to the item again, If I click on one of these items, you'll see they're black. I can double click on it and it'll open the property box up for me and jump me straight to that individual field. So if I was going through correcting something or looking for all the data because I wanted to change it, I can very quickly just jump round, double click on anything here, and it will take me into the right field on the property box for me to be able to edit it. The query window, a lot of people sort of think it's a scary window, but there's some really great stuff in here. So you can, these are the standard queries that come with Family Historian. Give you an idea of just how many other queries people have written and shared. If I do that, my list of custom queries actually gets down to C on my screen, and I have to scroll down if I use this to see some more.
So I think this just demonstrates the facility for advanced users, how much they can actually do with the program. But certainly the beginners just couldn't cope with what's there in the program for them to start with.
Okay. Right, I just want to mention the two things. There's a few things that we haven't mentioned that I just want to mention in passing, I think, because we've not got time to do more than that. Charts, I did touch on diagrams earlier. We've got a lot of different charts. So if we just take a look at, say, an all relatives diagram, and this list is quite useful. It remembers what people you've been working with and assumes that's the ones you might want to do a diagram for. Okay, so we take a look at this. This is an all relatives diagram for me. You can change the number of generations that you see on the charts. You can change the colours, you can change the boxes, you can change the text. You can pretty well do anything you want. There are some videos which are up on the user group site which do cover some of this, and there are some also a couple of useful videos on the Family Historian website as well. Just to give you an idea, if you want more information in the boxes, you can have lots of information or not a lot of information, whatever you want. And if we take a look at the whole of this diagram, you can see it can be quite big, and that's just 4 generations up and down. If I do one which has actually got everything in, it's absolutely ginormous. I can zoom in, and the other thing you can do is I can double click on these. My property box will come up and I can edit. And as you saw earlier, on any diagram you can edit, add people, do all those sorts of things just live on the screen. There's no problem with doing that at all. Reporting wise, I'll just go into the publishing tools finder just to try and give you an idea of the breadth. This tool's really useful. What it does is, if you know what you want to print, or you know what you're trying to do, you can go down this list and say, well, what I want is a list of individuals, and it says, do you want all the individuals or all the ones linked to a source? It will give you an explanation of what the report does, and then you can run it. So on this one, I can come in, I can say, right, I'm going to browse for a source. So let's see what we've got down under that one. Okay, and there are a couple of records there. So that particular one's got 16 links back, and that one's got 1 link back. So that publishing tools finder is a great way of working out what report you want. You've also got the ability here to build up books, so you can add multiple reports together, and it will do a combined index and table of contents. And that can be either exported as PDF, or you can export it in Word format. And for those that understand Word, it's wonderful. You can actually edit this document, and the table of contents and the index are actually written correctly for Word, so they're automatically update.
Oh, fabulous.
You can produce websites with this tool. You can, and it's very similar to the books tool. So when you go in, it'll say create a website, and you just step through the window, sorting out what you want to do with people that are alive, whether you want to miss them out or whether you want to cut down the information. You can also export. There's a couple of great tools on there if you want to use. There's a product called TNG, the next generation site building tool. A lot of Family Historian users use that to generate their websites.
I think we do, Jane.
We do, yes. The other thing which a lot of people find useful these days is a lot of people out there now have a couple of PCs. They have a laptop and a desktop PC. Again, you can have a look on the Family Historian user group site. If you search for sync tools, there are a whole load of explanations on moving your projects so they live in a Dropbox, and that way that they're really easy to pick up and use.
Look, even I can manage that. I've got Family Historian on my big daddy computer and on my baby computer, and it just syncs automatically. So whichever one I go to, I've got, as long as I've got a internet connection sometime in between using one or the other, I've got updated data. It's fantastic.
That's good. Did you have some more questions for me, Joe? I know we're tight for time now. You've gone very quiet.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I'm aware of feedback, that's why I'm muting myself all the time. You covered plugins. One for a person who can't type that I find really useful is find and replace. That's a plugin, isn't it? Yes, search and replace.
Yeah, search and replace is a plugin, but it's also available directly in Family Historian now on the edit menu.
Okay. That's good. But well, perhaps you can tell us about some of the plugins. A couple of your favourite plugins. What are they?
I think the main ones that I'm particularly keen on. I mean, the couple I've used that are actually up on my menu here. I actually use the Ancestors UK Census Checker one. Mike Tate's done a much more comprehensive version of this one. It's just I tend to use the one I wrote originally. What that will allow you to do is if I just run that, hang on, let's just select him and then we'll get some meaningful answers. So if I run that one, okay, what it's done there, let me move it over, is Mike's plugin. I'll check the name for you in a second. What you can see here now is that it looked at all the ancestors of the person I've got selected, found all the ones that I don't have census records for, that are apparently alive at this census. You'll see I've got a few ancestors I haven't killed off yet. But what you can do here is you can say, right, just click on the Find My Past link, and it'll automatically do the search. I always say Find My Past, this is an old plugin, but on Mike's version, which is updated, it will actually jump you into the page and do the search for you, which is a great time saver. So that one I use quite a bit. It's also good for telling you which people you haven't done yet.
So plugins are something that are written by family historian users and shared through the goodness of their own heart. Plugins have been checked by Calico Pi to make sure that they won't muck up your system. And they're things that just extend the flexibility. Is this right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what you can do is if you go to the Family Historian site, you can see there's a whole raft of plugins here. There's just 4 on the front page, but if you go to the Browse All Plugins, you can see a whole list of all the plugins that are available. So you've got, I mean, I'd recommend that you sort of have a good look through. There are some which actually update the data. One thing to bear in mind with plugins is that they will update data as well as just print that data, but most of them will tell you. And one good thing, if you run a plugin which does update data, there's the edit undo option will actually undo it again for you. So what you've got here, so if I say I just want something simple, I can click on a plugin. So I can say look at missing census facts, which is Mike's version of the one I've just shown you. If I want to install it, I can just download it. And if I double click on it, it'll actually install it. So it says, please be careful.
It's easy as.
Click OK, and it's installed it. What I can do now, I can go to plugins. Now, normal models won't have this many plugins.
Yes, you have many, and you've written many of them too. So thank you for what you've done. Have we missed maps, Jane?
We have. We can go and have a look at maps just very quickly.
Just a very quick map look out, and then we'll talk about where you get it.
Okay, no problem. Right, so I can select here. So what I've done, I've got this person selected. If I go up here, I can say map all places for Henry Joseph Handel Mullins. And he's not very exciting because he only lived in 2 places. But what I can do here, what it's done by default is if you do an individual, it will zoom the map to show you all the points that that person relates to. So, and I can zoom in and out with my mouse. So if we zoom down in a bit, we can zoom down, keep zooming down. And you can zoom right in. So there we go. He's only lived in 2 places. What you'll find sometimes is that when it maps, it does is looking up automatically, and it may want to move the map a little bit, the pointer a bit. So what you can do is click on this icon, and you just move the pointer a little bit, and that'll update your place record with that information. So if you wanted to make sure that the Frunk and Quinton one here was exactly over the point.
I used this really successfully this week to map all the ancestors of a particular person in my database, and it produced a lovely map. And you know, one place came up and I thought, oh heavens, they weren't there, but then when I looked, they were there in the 1901 census for staying at a son's place. So it was a lovely map to be able to share with someone.
Yeah, no, it's a great map from that point of view. So what you can see here, if I clicked on that individual place, because I've just got the one person in, there are just 3 events that occurred in Frunk and Quinton. And I obviously, because this is Family Historian, all this data is live, so I can double click on it and it'll jump me to the fact in the property window. So one of the big flexibilities, I think, is that pretty well anywhere that you can see information, you can get the property box up and see more information. So that's true for diagrams, that's true for maps. So pretty well anywhere that you can do something, you can do that. The other quite useful one is you can sort of zoom out and say, show me all the places just quickly. I can select an area to view, so rather than zooming in the other way, I can just zoom straight in. And I can also, if I want to, add more than one set. So what I can do here, I've got Inigo Alexander mapped already. So if I was to go back and go home to me, and then map me, what it will do, because the map's already open, and I don't think I've changed the settings lately, it's now mapped my locations on the same.
You haven't moved far.
No. I went way to here. So all my little green dots are all pretty close. And I can go in, so if I didn't like that green dot, because it doesn't really show up very well on this map, I can just edit the marker set, change the icon, so I can have a blue icon.
Yeah, I made mine red.
Yeah, so you can add that in and it will show you all the information. So it's a really useful tool, so you can map different ancestors, or different sets of ancestors, because this set doesn't have to be an individual. So if I edit this marker set, that's individual, so that's fine, and I can say what records I want in that set. So if I was to go here and say, right, rather than just being my individual records, what I want to do is add all my ancestors, and I'll have all my generations, and I'll have their spouses. Let's say 99. I haven't got that many. There you go. My ancestors didn't move far either.
Fantastic. Now listen, we've got a couple of questions. Carmel seems to be our champion questioner. She said no mobile app. Carmel, I use a mobile app. I can't remember the name of it. An Android one, but there is actually no, if I'm right, Jane, no Family Historian mobile app. But I've just imported my GEDCOM into another app, and if I'm going somewhere,
yeah, I mean, that's
I'll
all
use that.
I do. There are a variety. There's one called Ged Families, which I don't think they've quite updated yet to catch up with the fact that Family Historian now installs lots and lots of different. Jill, could you turn your speakers off for a sec? So there are lots and lots of different apps out there, and all of them will do GEDCOM. Where the problem is at the moment is that not all of them do full Unicode GEDCOM, which is a valid format, which Family Historians just started using to support international character sets. So you may need to just do an export, but you can then load the GEDCOM file into pretty well any program. Ged Families will actually cope with the photographs as well, so that's really useful. So it's worth having a look at the apps. So although there's not an app in the same way as there is for, say, Ancestry or whatever, you can get the information onto your tablets or onto your other devices by that method.
Yeah, Hilary Gadsby says she uses Ged Families. I might use that. It was one that was mentioned in FHUG that I've got, but I think Carmel's a Mac person.
Yeah, if you're running with a Mac, there's a very useful document on Family Historian user group for getting Family Historian running on a Mac.
I think she has a PC, but I've got a feeling she's got an iPhone. Maybe I'm wrong. The last question, and I gave you warning about this, so I know you won't have a long answer, is what can Family Historian do that can't be done in Legacy or Roots Magic?
I haven't used either of them in real anger. Obviously, I've been on Family Historian for the last 10 years. I believe some of the things, the sort of query language is more extensive on this. The plugins are certainly unique, and I don't think either of the others at this point allow you to do the photo trick that we were showing you with linking to individual faces or individual areas within a photo, but I'm not sure about that because I haven't looked at either of them recently. One thing that the Family Historian is also very good at is very large files. I did see somebody the other day that was working on a regular basis with a 60 and 70,000 person file, and I don't think that's uncommon in people that are doing surname studies. And there
I think,
people doing
yeah,
that.
Colin, Paul Colin's been on the panel and I haven't been deferring to him. Colin, you're aware of people using it for surname studies?
Yeah, there's a lot of people. Oh, your feedback, Jill.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of people using it for surname studies, and as Jane said, there are some very large databases being used that way. So yes, it is very extensible. The other thing that I found that's unique about it, and Jane touched on it with one of the reports, is the everybody report, or the everybody diagram. That, as Jane showed, can become totally unmanageable, but I don't think there's any other program that will do everybody from that's in your database. But there again, you will need to go to a specialist printer to print it if you do that.
Yes, I did.
Thank you, Colin. Go on, Jane.
I did talk to somebody, one of the specialist printers here in the UK, and they were printing out an 18 by 6 meter diagram for somebody from Family Historian.
Well, Jane, I think we've come to the end of the road. There's one thing, and I can manage this, and then I'll come back to you. One of the questions is, where do you get it? Where you can get it is you can download it directly from the Family Historian website, and that's the URL, but certainly a search in Google for Family Historian should find it for you. If you are the sort of person that likes a disc, you can buy a boxed version, and these are available from the authorised resellers in the UK, I presume the US, and certainly in Australia. And in Australia it's Genealogy who are the reseller. And I hit on Alan from Gould yesterday, and he's offered a 10% discount. I'll put this in the thread, a 10% discount until the end of January for either a new Family Historian package, that's version 6, sorry, or an upgrade from 5 to 6. He'll give you 10% discount if you order online or by phone before the end of January. So that's just something from Alan. That doesn't apply to resellers in other countries. Sorry, I didn't know them. I couldn't get up on them. So, Jane, I just want to say thank you so much and apologise for my equipment. That's probably what happened in the Hangout the other night when I had issues. So I'm in the market for a new headset, I think. Jane, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, for being so willing to come on, answer questions, etc., etc., etc.
You're very welcome.
I keep muting myself when I was talking. All right, everybody, I've said thank you to Jane. I want to thank everyone who's been in the using the comments. Thank you especially to Hilary and Colin for answering questions, to Carmel for asking lots of questions. That's really helpful to be able to answer your queries, and to everyone else who's been watching either online on YouTube or through the Google+. So I'll see you in another Hangout after I've checked on my babysitting engagements. Things have to work around family, you know. So that's all, folks.
Okay.